It was new for 2022. Now let's see for 2023. This is your 2023 Honda Civic Hatchback. And in this video, we'll talk about the outsides, the insides as far as design goes, what it's like to drive, and most importantly, what the Honda Civic Hatchback brings to the table as far as value proposition goes against the rest of the competition. So let's close up the intro and get on the road. There are 3 trims and 2 engine options for the 23 Honda Civic. You have a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder in the base model LX, and the Sport and Sport Touring get the 1.5 turbo with 180 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque. Interestingly, the base model LX comes in manual and automatic, manual being a 6-speed. The middle trim, which is the Sport, does not come in a manual, only a CVT, and the top trim Sport Touring, which is what I'm in, gets the CVT or the manual transmission. A really peculiar note here, on the top trim Sport Touring, there is no price difference between the CVT and the 6-speed manual. On the base LX, there's a $100 difference between the 6-speed manual and the CVT, so I feel that it's a really strange price point to knock up $100 to go with the different transmission, but here we are. Let's quickly touch on fuel consumption, and we'll talk about the vehicle that I'm in, which is the Sport Touring. On a 46-liter fuel tank of regular fuel, which is 87 octane, well done Honda on letting us use 87 octane on a turbo engine. It's 7.7 liters per 100 kilometers in the city. It is 6.3 on the highway, and our combined total comes out to 7.1. I've done 301 kilometers as of right now, and I'm at 7.2, so pretty much right on par. It's a small tank and you can go further, and I feel that's one of the strong points of the Civic Hatch. You can do a nice long road trip, really bring down that fuel consumption, and have a smooth, quiet-ish, and pretty comfortable ride. While I'm generally not a fan of CVTs, I don't mind Hondas here. There's a decent amount of pickup, and if you want something with a little more guts to it, look at the SI, look at the Type R. But for a regular commuter car, you still have decent acceleration. Now, it takes a little while to get up to speed, but once you hit 60, 70, you really feel that turbo kick in and propel you forward. As far as cornering and handling goes, it does it pretty well. The Civic Hatch is low to the ground, so it's got a lower center of gravity. I'm not saying take this to the track and race it, or don't do your city turns at high speeds, but know that there's minimal body roll here in the Civic Hatch, and it's a pretty comfortable and quiet ride. And yes, there's acoustic glass up front. It gets a little noisy on the highway, but not noisier than most other vehicles in the class. And I'm pretty impressed with just the overall driving dynamics of what the Civic does as far as the hatchback goes. Now, I have not driven the sedan yet. I imagine it's similar, a couple of different dimensions between the hatchback and the sedan. But just to wrap up on the driving impression side, it's quick when you need it to be. It handles well. Small footprint means it's easy to park, it's easy to maneuver. It'll fit in pretty much any garage. And yes, your side mirrors can fold in case you end up in a tighter parking spot. On the outside, it's the same as 2022, so it's a nice, clean design. What I like about the hatchback specifically is how unassuming it looks, and it's got very, very similar initial appearances to what the sedan looks like as far as that sharp slope around the rear. Now, the difference being you do get that larger glass on the hatchback, which goes up and gets you your extra cargo space. Since we're in the rear, we'll talk about the taillights, and they're that C shape that we saw in the last generation, which was the 10th generation Civic, but it's just a little more on the refined side, and it still looks really, really sharp. Peculiar thing for me is that chrome trim along the top of the glass for your side windows, and it looks a little unfinished to me. I would like to have them go all the way around for the full perimeter, or nothing at all. I don't find that chrome trim really adds much of anything. Your top trim Sport Touring does get some really nice looking rims, 18 inches for the top trim, and you get 16 inches on your base LX trim. The pattern looks pretty sharp, and it is a fairly minimalistic design, but still a very impressive design. Twin tailpipe finishers along the rear, and neither of them are dummy pipes, so well done there. And it completes the look for me. I just find it really peculiar when some vehicles come out with one tailpipe or one tailpipe finisher. It just has that incomplete look to it, and it's a nice way to round out the vehicle. Now, it's not blatantly obvious, but there's just enough there for you to notice. Up front, you have LED headlights, you have LED fog lights, you have your LED day runners. It's a clean look, and I like that Honda experimented a little bit with the 10th generation as far as going really out there and putting something really unique out to the market. But I'm more of a fan of what they've done now, and you'll see it in the HRV, in the CRV, and yes, here as well in the Civic Hatchback for the 11th generation. It's a modern yet minimalistic design. There's not a big cry for attention for it, and it's very well framed. And a cool touch is having that honeycomb pattern up front as well as inside here on the grille. There's really nothing to complain about as far as the Civic Hatch exterior design goes. A cool little touch here is Honda has gone upscale a bit by putting the wiper nozzles into the actual wipers itself as opposed to the base of the hood. Little upscale move there. I think it looks sharp, and you get a cleaner wipe when you do use your washer fluid. On the inside, the 23 Civic is the same as the 22, which was all new for the 11th generation. It's a very clean and modern design. It's fairly minimalistic. There's a lot of space in here, despite the entire cabin being black with the black seats and the black door panels and the black roof liner. Now, I'm going to close the sunshade, and you'll see just how dark it is in here. So I'm going to open that back up and get that more open feeling, which is what I like. I'm not sure how many other people like it, but in an all black cabin, having that extra little bit of light through the standard size sunroof really makes a big difference. Now, yes, Honda has started going with their honeycomb grille pattern just above the HVAC system and below the infotainment system. It looks really upscale, and it's such a small touch that really changes the feel of the cabin. And it's in the new CRV, and it's in the new HRV, and I imagine it's going to be in the rest of Honda's design language in all their vehicles going forward. Thankfully, we have hard touch buttons and dials for the HVAC system, so no going through screens, no digging around, no taking your eyes off the road. And the interesting part is on the perimeter of the dials for your temperature and fan speed, it's got this nice textured pattern, and it's very, very upscale, and that's kind of the theme of what Honda's done here. They've taken the Wild Child, which was their 10th generation Civic, and really not quite toned it down, but given it more of a mature and grown-up look and feel here. Honda gives us two options for the infotainment system. You get a 7-inch screen on lower trims and a 9-inch screen on the higher trims. I would say go for the larger screen on the higher trims because, well, it's less squinting and finding what you want, and that 2 inches really does make a difference when you're traveling on the road, especially at higher speeds. The windshield is quite large, so you get that nice forward field of view. The A-pillars are fairly thin. Top trims get a 12-speaker Bose audio system, and there is a speaker in each of the A-pillars here. You have 3 seating options. You have fabric, you have a mix of fabric and leatherette, and then you have leather trimmed. Top trim, which is what I'm in, the Sport Touring, has the leather trimmed seats. They're pretty comfortable. They fit me quite well. Now, on lower trims, you don't get a power front seat for the driver or the passenger. Here we do have power for both. I think it's a bit of a miss. I think Honda should have gone for the power seats on at least the top 2 trims and not only the top trim. The top trim does get wireless charging as well as wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. To me, it doesn't make a difference if I'm wired or wireless. I just want my phone to charge. I'm partial towards the wired charging because I find my phone gets really hot really fast when it's on that wireless charging tray. One complaint about the interior of the 23 Civic is the gear selector. It comes up pretty high, and it can get in the way when you're going from where I'm at, where my hands are at 9 and 3, to go over and tap into the HVAC system. Now, it's not terribly intrusive, but a little shorter, and I'd be a happy guy. Up front, we have heated seats, and on the top trim Sport Touring, we get heated seats for the outboard rear passengers. Really nice touch. Going around to the rear seats, they're pretty comfortable. Now, I wouldn't want to be that person in the middle seat for too long, but it is a fairly comfortable place to sit considering the size and class of the vehicle. The top trims get the digital instrument cluster, and it's mostly digital. There's a big screen, but bookending those are your temperature gauge on the far left and your fuel gauge on the far right. I think Honda should have just put everything into that big digital screen for the instrument cluster. It looks good, it's framed nicely, but when their competitors are doing it and making it look a little better, I feel Honda should have gone that extra mile and really given us something that's fully, truly digital. One miss for me on the interior is the backup camera. It is low res. I expect a lot better out of Honda in the year 2023, especially with an all-new model coming out last year in 2022. Yes, it has multi-angles, but the resolution is just so low compared to what the competitors offer. And I don't need a 360 cam because the car is fairly small with a small footprint, easy to drive, easy to maneuver, but just having something that's so crucial to a lot of drivers be so low res, it's a miss for me. As we wrap up the interior, I'll touch on cargo space. Now, the hatchback has a whopping 693 liters, and that's one of the benefits of hatchbacks. The glass goes up and you have all that extra space. Seats go down in a 60-40 split and you have even more space. And the Civic sedan has far less than that. So if you're ever torn between the hatchback and the sedan and cargo space is a factor for you, definitely pick the hatchback. As far as the value proposition goes, let's see where Honda lines up against the competitors. So there are three trims for the Honda Civic Hatchback: the LX, Sport, and Sport Touring. The top trim, Sport Touring, comes in at a little over $39,000, and as per Honda Canada's website, that includes your freight and PDI. Now, the three competitors I'm putting it up against will be the Mazda 3, the Corolla, and the Subaru Impreza. Let's touch on the Mazda 3 first. So the top trim GT Turbo Mazda 3 comes in at $37,400, and that's spec'd with that massive turbo engine, getting a 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque, a significant jump over what we have here in the Civic Hatchback. The Corolla, when decked out to the top trim XSE, comes in at $33,000, so a $6,000 difference between what we have here in the Civic Hatch and the Corolla XSE. They're not exactly the same, but they're fairly close as far as specs go. Finally, the Impreza from Subaru, their top trim, the Sport Tech with Eyesight, which is the top trim out of their 7 trims, which is I think 3 too many or maybe 4 too many for me, that comes in a little under $35,000. So all the competitors are lower than the Civic Hatch as far as price point goes, comparing top trims all around. Each has their benefits. So Subaru has a very sluggish transmission, whether it's their CVT or their 5-speed manual, but you get the Eyesight and you get Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive. On the Toyota side, their big benefit happens to be that they have great resale value. They're known for their longevity, and you'll see a ton of these on the road. And the Mazda's benefit is not only is it a premium upscale brand while not entering into the luxury world, but you have gobs of power there. Again, the 250 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque. You cannot get that in a manual, but you get that in the automatic, but there are still manual transmissions to be had. So as far as the value proposition goes for what Honda's offering with their Civic Hatch, it's a very, very cleanly designed interior. The exterior has a lot of more mature feel to it compared to the last generation, and really compared to the rest of the competition as well. I find the Corolla to be a little too bland. The Impreza's, well, it's good, not great. And the Mazda 3, for me, is the best looking out of the bunch, but the Civic Hatch is a very close second. Is the Civic Hatch priced too high? I'm going to say yes. Not by a lot, by a little bit, but it's still overpriced to me. And the comparison I'm going to draw is the Honda CR-V Hybrid, which comes in at $50,000. And I know it's not the same as the Civic Hatch, but having driven a few Hondas over the past few months and checking out specs and pricing, Honda is definitely the highest price as far as mainstream manufacturers go. I'll give you the price on the 3 trims as of early March 2023. The base model LX comes in at $32,000. The Sport comes in at $35,000. And we have here the Sport Touring comes in at $39,000. Now compare that to the Mazda 3, which has their entry level come in the low 20s, which is $10,000 of a difference, and the Corolla, which also comes in the low 20s, is a bit of a hard sell for me for the Civic if it's price point alone. And yes, every vehicle will have their features and their benefits, and one thing Honda has going for it is their mile-long list of safety, and we'll quickly touch on that. So standard safety here includes automatic high beams, lane departure warning, forward collision warning, lane keep assist, pre-collision braking, automatic cruise control, blind spot information system, and the very top trim gets rear cross traffic alert. Wouldn't bother me at all. I wouldn't need that as far as comparing it to what the standard list of safety features are. So I think if Honda came down a little bit, I think it'd be more of an even fight against the Mazda 3 and the Corolla, even though there's a few $1,000s difference between them. I'm not sure if Honda is going to change their pricing strategy. And yes, it's wishful thinking because I know Honda can't come down on price, but I think if you're not loyal to the Honda brand and you are looking for a subcompact hatchback, I don't think the Civic is going to be the highest value for your dollar here. Yes, the Civic was Canada's best-selling car from 1997 all the way up to 2021. They lost that crown to the Toyota Corolla last year, and the big contributor to that was not that it was a bad model and a bad year for Honda as far as what they put out, but its production limitations. And Toyota just happened to put out more, and I think if there was a regular year that we had in 2022, I really feel that the Civic would have held on to that crown that extra year. We ran a Twitter poll asking you what you'd pick between a Honda Civic Hatchback and a Honda Civic Sedan. 66% voted for the hatchback, and I was one of those 66% because I love the rear wiper, I love having the extra cargo space, and appearance-wise, it's very similar to what the sedan looks like. Yes, there's more glass on the hatchback side, and well, that's just how it has to be, but minimalistic differences as far as overall design goes. There's still that big slope and strong angle of the design along the rear. Pretty close as far as looks go, but I'm going to go with the hatchback because you get that functionality of the cargo space, and on the safety side you get that rear wiper so you have full rear visibility. Despite its higher price, I feel you'll still see a lot of Honda Civic hatchbacks on the road. There's Honda loyalists, and there's people who just want what Honda has to offer, and they're willing to pay the extra premium for that, and that is good and fine. And some people feel that it's worth, spending that $2,000-ish compared to the top trim Mazda 3 for what they get in the Honda Civic. And it's not a bad car by any means. The only real knock I have against it is that it's a little overpriced for what you're getting. If you've got any questions on the 2023 Honda Civic Hatchback, let us know in the comments. We're always happy to hear from you. Please engage with us on our social media platforms and visit our website, Driving.ca, for more news, reviews, and information you can use on subcompact hatchbacks and sedans and all vehicles, really. For Driving.ca, I'm Jay Kana.